Hello, my name is Tessa Rae and I'm coming at you from my room. I am making this video today to talk about uh, how Teal Swan has changed my life. For those of you who don't know, Teal Swan is a spiritual teacher in the field of metaphysics. She's a new age sort of beliefs person, and um, honestly, there aren't that many. Well, there are many voices in um, metaphysical, spiritual sort of things, but Teal has always stood out to me as being a little bit different from the rest because um, she's one of the people who isn't all love and light, and um, is very bold in her teachings, and she's been a major inspiration to me as I'm going through my life, making all these changes, all these good things. So, yeah, for those of you who don't know her, I'd really recommend reading up on her. She has an amazing story, and I guess I'm here today to tell you how her story and my story coincide. To sum it up briefly, Teal was abused ritually by this weird cult for most of her life, and finally, at the age of 19, she ended up escaping with severe problems, PTSD, seizures, all sorts of whack things happen because of the physical and emotional and spiritual abuse that she went through. She has used her story, which most people would assume would end there, I mean, how do you ever bounce back from that? But she's used her story as a way to give hope to other people who are also struggling. A lot of her teachings that have really stood out to me are things such as you're right for feeling the way you do, and things like it's okay to feel bad. For most of my life, and for most of our lives as a collective, we very rarely run into people who have the courage to admit to not feeling strong all the time, and yet they are strong. And I think that was a huge deal to me, and I think that in and of itself is gonna help many people in the future, not just me. So yeah, I'm just gonna start diving into my own story. I might have to cut the video a lot at this part. I meant to make this scripted, but instead, I'm just gonna try the best I can to simplify the heck out of my story, because there's a lot of different things, that are kind of, explain why I'm drawn to Teal. So, I think a lot of us So when I was 17, my life started to change drastically. Or maybe it was closer to age 16. Um, but what I mean by this is, at age 16, I started to be horribly abused by my dad. And it's still taken me most of the past, like 5-6 years, I'm 22 now, to really come to terms with this. And my family, we grew up Christian, and my dad had painted this like amazing image to the rest of the world. You know, everyone would see him as this guy who could do no wrong for some reason. And as I started to become more aware that what he was doing wasn't right, it just, it changes your life to go through something like this. I feel like unless you've met someone yourself who is like a narcissist, sociopath, psychopath, I feel like it's just too hard to comprehend. But I've come to the conclusion that a lack of empathy is really the root of all evil in the world. And so what started happening is my dad, who had ignored me for basically most of my childhood, found out that I was smoking pot and used my drug use as a way to start abusing me. And I mean, I knew that it was not okay to be using drugs, so I think a part of me just told myself that it was okay to be treating me the way that he was just because I wasn't perfect. And yeah, for most of my life, I felt like an immense pressure to be perfect. I'm pretty sure it's because of the programming I've been through growing up. And so all the things that Teal has said about you're not wrong for feeling the way you're feeling was really important to me, and it is really important to everyone else who's going through abuse, because when you're up against people who are deceitful, it's so hard to remind yourself and to tell yourself that you're not wrong for speaking up, and you're not wrong for standing up for yourself. And I mean, thankfully, I've always been kind of a fighter, so I feel like I have made it out of these sort of abusive situations, but this is just the beginning of my story, so I'll get to the rest. Teal's the first person who actually started talking about, the first person that I ever discovered who began talking openly about the things that no one wants to talk about because they're afraid of being called crazy. And I can tell you that I've been through some absolutely crazy things that can't be explained by science or anything really, except for spirituality, except for the sort of thing that unites us all. What is it? Is it God? Is it quantum mechanics? Who knows? But we all, I think, are getting to a point in our existence where we're realizing that we're all part of something bigger than ourselves. So around the time when I found Teal, I was 19. I had gone off to college in order to escape the abusive situation at my house. And I failed miserably going to college. I mainly went out there to party. I did a lot of drugs. I drank every weekend. I was like literally, I couldn't even kid myself. I was there to get away from it. And I knew that. And I was there to make friends and to just get away from it all. And it's really stupid because I ended up getting really in debt just over wanting to escape. And but at the time, you know, it was the most viable option to me. And so when I was at college, I got in trouble for drinking, like one of my first weeks there. Whew, lightning. And God's like, don't do that. Don't drink. I'm sorry. I'm acting crazy. I ended up getting in trouble when I was there, came back, and found myself with an amphetamine habit. But, well, I call this problem, it was a legal addiction. I think a lot of us who have ever been prescribed medication that alter our moods and behaviors realize what legal addiction actually is. And it's a very real problem in America, but no one wants to talk about it because it's taboo to talk about. So at the time, I was 19, working a job I hated at Dairy Queen in the mall, and I hate the mall, and I hated Dairy Queen, and I actually hated school, and I hated just about everything, except for drugs. And friends. I really loved my friends, but yeah, it's just so crazy to think about. Like, still, I don't know where I'd be without Teal being this little guru, you know, that we can just take around on our screens. She's been there for me, even though she doesn't know it. Ooh, my gosh, I'm even feeling like I'm gonna start crying. It's just crazy to think about where I'd be. So, my whole reality, well, when I first discovered her, she, would talk about, like, I remember watching her video on drugs, and she's like, you gotta be careful because a lot of drugs can be used as a way to escape yourself. And I just kind of hated that. I was like, that's bullshit. Like, I'm not escaping myself. I need these drugs to be normal, you know? And I'd convinced myself of that, and then it just all came crashing down one day. I was working at Dairy Queen, and I went up to the register to take someone's order when I experienced a sudden change of consciousness, and it was unexpected, and I never had something that scary ever happen to me before, but it was like I had a head rush, and it washed over me, and when it finished washing over my eyesight, everything was different. My hands were really small, the furniture was really big, and my tiny hands were shaking uncontrollably. And I somehow managed to get out that I didn't feel well, and I went in the back and proceeded to do what I now know as stereotypical seizure behavior, where I paced back and forth. I thought I was having a psychotic episode, but I would ask myself, am I hearing voices? And it was like, no, I'm not hearing voices. And, so I managed to get some water and sit down, and just like that, I mean, I didn't put two and two together right away that it was my medication that caused it, but a few days later, I took my medication, and the same thing happened. But by then, I had figured out it was a seizure, so I was like, okay, you're going through a seizure, so I was really stupid, and I powered through the seizure. Like, I was having a seizure while I was working. I managed to make a blizzard, the little ice cream treats in the machine we had, while I was, like, shaking. I don't know, man. I don't know why I did that. I was so terrified of being called crazy, and it's been a lifelong fear of mine, and I think I've slowly just learned to, like, let go of it. I mean, I guess I still get triggered from time to time, but it's just like, life is crazy. I think anyone who doesn't think life is crazy, doesn't think this society that we've constructed is absolute insanity, they haven't realized the full picture yet. So this is a turning point for me because my whole reality came crashing down. Suddenly the drug that I needed to take to feel normal, I couldn't take it. And I kind of have always had this sort of conversation with God, you know, going on. And I think we all do. We all have these conversations with Source happening inside ourselves. So I remember I like talked to God and I was just like not verbally, but I had to like, you know, take a time to myself and be like, by then, I had already come to the realization that everything does happen for a reason. And I read this book around that time called Let Your Life Speak. So it's like, okay, what is my life saying to me right now? I had to take a time and be like, okay, if this is meant to happen, that means I can't do my medication anymore. Because I'm fairly certain if I keep doing my medication, I'm gonna die. Some guy at the mall I'd worked at, he told me about this random kid who had been prescribed amphetamines, and he would tell his parents, I don't like how this makes you feel. And then one day he just randomly died. So, and also, amphetamines are like some of the most dangerous drugs you can be prescribed. I didn't know any of this crap. I just told myself I was not normal. I needed the drugs to feel normal. And it was terrifying to realize that I had to come face to face with this sort of experience to realize that it had happened. Like, to realize that the way I was living wasn't my destiny. So, Teal always had talked about natural eating and how important it is to eat healthy in order to see difference. So it's around this time when I started to take my health really seriously. And I stopped doing all drugs. I smoked cigarettes at the time. I didn't even smoke cigarettes. I used to smoke weed, I stopped smoking weed, I used to drink, and I stopped drinking, and I just kind of put a hold on it all, on all of it. And actually, reading up about nutrition became a huge passion of mine at this time, because I started reading up on, well, different things that helped me. I guess this isn't the point. Gotta say, remember that it's about Teal. She helped me. She was a catalyst. She was one of many catalysts throughout my life who helped me realize that eating naturally is really all you have to do to be healthy. But beyond that, Teal also was the person who told me about the liver flush, and that saved my life, I think, because yeah, for those of you who don't know, the amazing liver and gallbladder flush is insane. Like, it's an alternative to gallbladder surgery, and it worked for me. A lot of people will say it's a hoax. I've seen what it's done to me, and there's no way it's a hoax. And so, if you're having any sort of liver problems, I'd find out if you are by taking milk thistle, see if any of your bad symptoms improve, and then if they do, try the liver flush. So that was the next big step. It became this whole spiritual journey for me. For me, eating healthy was a huge part of it. And I started developing a vegan diet. I'm no longer vegan, but that's okay. I'll explain more about that later. She told me about the liver and gallbladder flush, and I remember the first time I ever did a liver flush, I flushed out, well, let's see, I woke up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat, feeling like absolute shit, and I had, I don't even know, I felt so nauseous, flu-like, and my throat hurt, and like, it was horrible. And the next morning, though, I managed to power through, and I flushed this gallstone that was literally like an inch around. Like it was this big in my gallbladder. Like and I was like, okay, I definitely have liver problems, and I'm gonna keep doing these. So that was a huge part of my healing journey, and Teal was the catalyst that helped me figure out about that. You know, she was the reason why I discovered that. So that was a huge deal. And I started aligning with more people who were vegan. A lot of my good friends were vegan at the time, and I just really liked the community that it gave me. I even used to drink soda, man. I used to drink soda. I never drink that shit anymore. Isn't that hilarious? Oh my god. But it gets even crazier, because I've always been able to see, I don't know, it's like this pattern thing. I can see it around people. I think it's like auras or thought forms, something like that. And, you know, when I first started seeing it, it's like, oh my gosh, am I, like, starting my descent into, like, insanity? But no, I'm not crazy. I, like, have come to terms with some people see the world in a very different way than other people. And that doesn't mean they're wrong, and it doesn't mean they're crazy. It means they're different. There's nothing wrong with that. So I began this whole spiritual thing. And in this time, I lost a lot of friends because I realized that they weren't able to let go of this image of who they thought I was. I was this sort of outspoken, bold party girl. I did amphetamines. I would drive around in my car and just kind of listen to music really loudly. I still do that. Nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, I used to be a huge partier. I lost a whole lot of friends because they're just like, you're lame. Like, they wouldn't say that to me, but that was the main... It all started happening when I started caring about my health. I think a lot of people associate eating healthy with, like, being boring. No, eating healthy is not boring. Eating healthy is badass. And it's about time we start shifting our view of what eating healthy is. It's totally badass, and it makes you a fucking rebel. Because you're breaking out of this quick fix society that we built. Right? We're breaking out of this construct that is just destined to fail. So, the next big part of my spiritual journey was, it's still happening. I don't know. There's a lot of things that are still happening, you know, it's just, we think when we start making these changes that everyone will just notice, you know, and that it'll just be immediate. It took me a long time to stop getting skin problems and, to flush all the stones out of my liver. I'm now stone free, so that's nice. But the next big thing was breaking up with the guy that I was dating at the time. Miles, he was like all the friends that I had, most of the friends I had at that time, who just were, like, wasn't able to move past who I was becoming. I wasn't that person that, he used to be, but I felt like, I still feel like, it's not like I'm changing, it's like I'm growing, you know, I'm not becoming the same. And, I mean, when we try to stay the same, we honestly have to fight life so much in order to stay the same. It's so much easier to just listen to what your life is saying and move from it. And so, we on some level came to acknowledge that he didn't love me for who I was. He loved me for this idea of who I was. And it was my idea to break up, but it's like, I can't be with someone who... I mean, any relationship where you're trying to change the other person is going to be toxic. It doesn't even matter. If you have the best intentions in the world, it's going to be toxic. So, Teal was there for me to help me through all the emotions I was going through at this time when I was losing friends and when I was sorting through the emotional baggage of my past. My parents got divorced when I was 18, and that's another reason why I was running away. It was just really fucking painful. And I discovered my dad was cheating on my mom myself. And it was like, shocker to everyone else, but it's like, yeah, I already knew he was an asshole, so it's not really that much of a shocker to me. I'm sorry, I go off on tangents. So, at this time, when Miles and I ended up breaking up, that's when I went through one of the most defining experiences of my life. So I've always been kind of fringe culture, I guess you would say. I haven't ever fit in with the mainstream ideas that other people have. I don't, mean to. I think my mom sometimes thinks that I, try to be this weird. It's not like that at all. I just, see the world in a different way than everyone. Than almost everyone. And, so I had given up on doctors a long time before this, because I realized that they, at large, didn't want to address the cause of disease, instead wanted to deal with symptoms, mask symptoms of the disease. And so I started having this bizarre skin issue. And it started out small. It was on my forehead, and it was these bumps. And they were very itchy. And it looked like acne, but something intuitively told me that it was not acne, because acne doesn't itch like that. And so it just was this bizarre journey that I went on, in which I was awakening to a whole lot of things about the world, about how things are, and realized that the disease I had, that the skin problem I had was actually a disease, and that disease is called Morgellons disease. It's Morgellons. And, it is by far, the most horrible disease. Okay, I can't say that, but it is the most bizarre disease that you could ever get. Because, if you try to go to a doctor, right, and tell them that you think you might... I'm sorry, I need to slow down. It's a disease where basically there are bugs that come out of your skin. You have these sores, these open sores that are severely itchy, and there's these bugs that come out of your skin. They're not actual bugs, but I think they are actually devotes mites, which exist naturally on the skin. Something happens in the physiology to set off an abnormal, it sets them off so they start growing abnormally. And so you realize that okay, everyone has these devotes mites on their skin, and it was just a bizarre journey, because it's it figures that I would manifest this sort of disease, because I already didn't trust doctors anyways, and now I can't go to a doctor because they'll most doctors, when they find out that someone has Morgellons disease, label them as delusional and will send them into a psych ward and pump them full of antipsychotics. And I had already, at this time, awakened to the fact that, hey, I don't like drugs. I don't want to do drugs. They're dumb. And so I was just like, well, this is great. And it led on to be the most intensely isolating experiences and most intensely spiritual experiences of my life. There's a lot of fear going around about this disease, and very few people have actually discovered what causes it. And so, I'm happy to say that after a whole lot of soul searching, I found what the cause is. I don't even think it was me, honestly. It wasn't me. At this time, I learned how to access my spirit guides, and I got help from different guides who specifically helped me with health problems, and God, it was such an intense time in my life. When you look up Morgellons disease too, you start running into all sorts of conspiracy theories. And so it's just like, I was already sort of believed it, but this experience just plunged me head first into accepting this is how things are. The issue of geoengineering is a huge issue. I would recommend watching the documentary What in the World Are They Spraying and Why in the World Are They Spraying. But anyways, to bring it back to Teal, the reason why she was so pivotal and of such a huge importance to me during this time was because everyone around me thought I was crazy, and yet I knew I wasn't crazy, and she's been through that. And not only has she been through that, she's survived it. She's become stronger because of it. And I guess I realized, as I'm making this video, I still have a lot of things that I'm working on, that, just lately, I finally stood up to my dad, and he's had it with me having opinions and a voice of my own, so he's cutting me out of my life. I don't know what I'm gonna do, I don't fucking know what I'm gonna do. Alright, my car insurance runs out pretty soon here. I'm glad that I've, found out what causes this Morgellons disease, and I'm starting to make YouTube videos to help other people with it, but a lot of things have been happening lately, so I just need to keep on that. Her videos, though, she helped me. I now am in a regular practice of, she used to be sort of, I think I used to be kind of, unhealthy in how I would, watch her videos, but that's not the point. That's not the point. That's not why she's making these videos. She's making these videos, and it's always stuck with me how she's like, you need to listen to your own voice, your intuition. If something within you is saying something's not right, fuck other people's opinions. You gotta listen to your own inner voice. I mean, if you're hurting other people, that's a whole other story, but most of us spiritual empath sort of people don't struggle with just hurting the shit out of everyone. Most of us struggle with learning to love ourselves and learning to accept ourselves. And so I'm really excited for when the completion process comes out, because I feel like I could benefit greatly from it. With all the unprogramming, reprogramming that I'm gonna have to do because of my abusive dad, and I've even kind of gotten PTSD from that Morgellons disease. It's kind of weird, but certain things seriously trigger me into those same feelings of intense isolation. And so, how do I want to end this? It's not over yet. My story's still going, and so is yours. And so is Teal's. We're all kind of waiting, I think, sometimes for a better time, a better place to do the things that we really want to do. But there comes a time eventually where you realize it's either do or die. And you realize there's never going to be a time when it's any easier. We think that money will make it easier. I can't say from experience, but like from what I've seen, none of these things that we think will make it easier actually do, but the one thing that does work is being authentically you, no matter what other people say, and learning to be yourself and loving other people and loving yourself. Relationships are forever. Like, these sort of things aren't tangible. What does a relationship look like? We get all sorts of different ideas in our mind, but it's bottom line, connections that we make in our lifetime don't go away. And so, yeah, I really, when I think about my life and who I used to be, it's just crazy. And I think most of us have stories that are just kind of challenge what we think is even possible. And so, I guess I wanted to leave you with, I don't know. I don't know how to end this. I want to keep going. I mean, the story's still going. This crazy story. And we're going through dimension shifts at this time that are just... I've heard that 2016 is going to be pretty tame, but 2017 is going to be a fucking joke. I just, like... It's getting to a point where you have to awaken, otherwise it's just... You're not going to make it. Well, okay, I'm sorry. I'm not saying this to scare anyone. But there is a whole lot more to reality than what most of us ever even imagined. And what's possible really stretches far beyond the confines that our brains allow us to even comprehend. So, yeah, okay, I think I've talked for, like, way too long now. So, yeah. I hope you guys all have a nice day, and please check out Teal if you're wanting to, grow in every way possible. And if you're ready to just leave it all behind, leave everything behind and just be willing to give yourself the voice that you never had. It takes a lot of courage. It's this one song. It's like, it takes a lot of courage to go out there and radiate your essence. So I guess I'll leave you with that. Namaste. And good luck to everyone on their own unique path.